It's podcadzo.
Welcome back to Podcadzo, the official companion podcast to the well-known indie rock band Cadzo. I'm Colin.
I did not interrupt you a single time
Well, you just
until
said.
the very end. I didn't interrupt during the actual important part.
I'm joined by my co-host Julian, as always.
Yes. It'd be weird if we did one of these without one of us.
Yeah, a solo pod.
Like a solo pod, or like if Benson filled in for me one day. I guess that wouldn't be weird. That would make a lot of sense.
That could work.
Yeah. It just wouldn't work if you weren't here.
I guess we're a bi-weekly podcast
No,
now.
I don't want to broadcast that out to the world. I don't want to
weekly?
broadcast that out to the world. It's just been a circumstantial.
It's been a
all
tumultuous
circumstantial
time for us.
Yeah.
Hard to do these episodes. We're sorry for being irregular, but I can't really have that put on me. I can't be held down that way. That we need to put out a podcadzo every week.
No.
That's not conducive to
Creativity.
creative podcasting.
It's true. But also, if you don't set a goal and try to stick to it, then eventually we're just going to wind up doing no episodes.
No
a week.
episodes, which no one wants.
No.
We're
too young to just quit now.
Yeah, exactly. We've come too far.
This podcast is barely a year old. We're just starting to build a regular audience.
What do you mean barely a year old? It's almost 2 years old now.
Or almost dude, I keep losing a year. I keep thinking that
2024 meant nothing to me.
I keep thinking that 2024 was like when we started, but 2024 was like
It really feels like, yeah, I shouldn't say 2024 means nothing to me. It's really like 2023 feels nothing to me.
2023 is the year that feels like nothing to me.
And in a lot of ways, I feel like we didn't get started as a band until 2024 or like late 2023. We put out the EP sometime mid 2023 and started the podcast like May of 23, if I recall.
I think the podcast was like one of the first solid ideas that we had in the group. We were like, and we're going to do a podcast, right?
Yeah, exactly.
What does that say about us?
I don't know. Well, it's fun doing podcasts.
Yeah.
I don't know if we ever talked about the origins of podcadzo. Really, probably in like the first episode.
Not really an origin story. I guess we probably barely mentioned it in the first episode. Yeah.
Julian and I had a very short-lived official companion podcast to a different band we were in. That was just kind of a fun thing we're messing around with.
Yeah.
That lasted like 10 episodes.
But we always had a good flow.
Really good flow, and it was just fun to do it. And when Cadzo came about, we were like, "Hey, we could do."
There's nothing standing in our way.
Yeah, we could do this podcast thing. And it was just convenient because, like I've said before, we practice here in your basement, meet here before. There's time to kill. What better way to spend that time than to chop it up about music?
Totally.
About what's going on in our lives. And just to keep the fans, which we're still waiting for, updated.
The podcast fans.
The podcast fans. Yeah.
No, I will say, I've had more people recently tell me that they listen to the podcast as a source of just pure escapism. Like, they're not trying, obviously we don't have an end goal here to like inform people really of anything or like have a mission statement. There's no point really to the podcast. We're the Seinfeld of podcasts.
Mm-hmm. And by that he means the most successful podcast
of all time. You just don't know it
90s.
Yet. Yeah. But no, people have been telling me more lately that they like listening to us because we are just stupid and pointless and fun.
Yeah.
And it's just like talking to the boys, but
That's the nicest compliment similar to that I've gotten about the podcast is someone said they put it on at work when they feel lonely because they have kind of a lonely job where, they work by themselves and it makes them feel like they're hanging out with us and, just part of a conversation. And, I mean, no one listens to this podcast. Very few people listen to this podcast. We appreciate hugely the people that do. And if you're listening to it right now, but don't be fooled. Even if 0 people listen to this,
we would still be
Julian
here.
Would still be down here doing it.
We don't do it for that.
We're having fun.
Yeah.
And this is an important way for us to stay in touch with each other. I feel like it helps with rehearsals too, because we've kind of warmed up, connected in a way, verbally before we try to connect musically.
It's kind of interesting, like when we're setting up for rehearsal, or even when we're setting up for the podcast, it's like dead silent usually, and then as soon as we start the camera, it's like bam,
back
the
to
juices are flowing, and then that's what kicks off the. Not to say that we can't talk outside of the podcast, because that would be depressing.
Yeah.
But it's just like this is when I feel like my brain is just the most like stream of consciousness. I can kind of just say and do whatever the fuck I want.
Do you ever get? Nervous isn't the right word, but it's the only word I can come up with. Do you ever get nervous before the podcast?
I used to get really nervous, and I think you could even tell. Like, there's some episodes, especially when we were trying to have them be more. Like structured. Each episode be more like topical and structured.
Yeah.
Like the Thrice episode, for example, where I'm basically just talking about Thrice for the whole episode. Like, I start to feel really nervous at some point.
I've never been able to
I'm just
tell
rambling.
that you're nervous.
Like, I get like a little shakiness in my voice or whatever.
I've got like
feel
when you're
breath.
giving. Yeah, that's the worst. Like when you're giving a
presentation,
and talking publicly. And all it takes is one bad breath.
And then you're just off your flow for the whole rest of it. I
have to present a lot in my job, so pretty large groups of people. And it's something I pride myself in, that I'm a good public speaker. And I usually turn in a pretty good performance, I think. But there was one time recently where I was going along fine, took a bad breath, and just could not recover. And I just fell apart the rest of the presentation. I don't think it was too obvious, but inside I was just like, I can't fucking breathe.
That's kind of analogous for how I felt in the Thrice episode.
Yeah,
that's
the
most
to me
recent
on the pod.
One that I can remember, where I was just like, and it wasn't even because I felt like pressure or anything. It was just because I was like, man, I hope I'm not like fucking this up. I hope I'm not just like rambling incoherently about something that seems important to me but isn't actually like relevant to anybody else.
Yeah.
And again, yeah, like at the end of the day, I know the Thrice episode of this podcast isn't going to get like that many views. Like, people don't really give a shit about Thrice. People don't really give a shit about podcadzo. Like, why would that episode do well? That's not what made me nervous. It was more just like, yeah, when the spotlight is on you for that long and you have to seem like you're well rehearsed, which for this in particular, I never am well rehearsed. It's almost always just like I make some loose notes and then I just riff off of those loose notes that I make.
That's certainly happened to me when I'm the one kind of driving a topic. I'll get a little shaky, being like, shit, this is not rehearsed. I don't know what I'm talking about. But I wouldn't say I get nervous per se, but sometimes when I'm driving over here and I'm like getting close to your house, I have that feeling like, shit, like about to do a podcast. I don't know if I'm ready for that. Let's hope I can turn in a good performance. But then when we sit down, because like when that feeling comes in, I'm like, talking for like an hour straight feels unimaginable right now. But then whenever we sit down and start doing it happens.
Usually. Yeah.
It's easy.
It doesn't always. I think there's some times where it's like, I feel like I have at least like 40 minutes to an hour's worth of material, and then it winds up being like 20 minutes. And then I'm just like, oh, fuck. Well, what do we do for the rest of this?
I guess we got to talk about you two again.
But no, I do think also like it has to be bared in mind, like we both work full time, and as much as it kind of seems like we joke about the band being like the companion to the podcast, like the band really does come first. Like,
yes,
we spend way more time working on songs and like jamming and getting ready for shows and playing shows and all that stuff than we actually spend like thinking about the podcast. So if it was to be like the podcast is more organized and we have more notes and we actually like can stay on track and fill out like an hour and a half, but then like we trade that for the time we spend on the band, then that's not really a good thing. I think the podcast should be like the stupid thing that doesn't really get any thought.
Yeah.
And then the band should be the thing that like we actually get together to do together. Cause yeah, if he drove over to my house from Denver, like an hour away, so that we could do this for an hour, like that would be really pathetic.
That'd be depressing.
Yeah.
I'm not depressed. I'd still do it.
I think it would be depressing after a while.
Yeah.
I'd be like, what are we doing, man?
Especially if viewership
never
stayed
takes
on
off.
this.
Yeah, if we were putting a lot of time
level
and effort into this and viewership still wasn't taken off, that'd be depressing. But
I will say, just by virtue of doing a lot of shows, putting a lot of episodes out there, and this is part of what's horrible about the current media landscape, but it really works if you just put enough shit out into the world. Viewership grows in some way.
We start to
And
build a small base.
Julie and I were approached by someone trying to run a scam on podcasters.
They were trying to run a train on us.
Trying to run a train on podcasters, on successful music podcasts. And just discovered us because we have released more episodes than what an average podcast does. And I said, well, thanks, brother, but it's not hard to do when you put zero effort
into... It's not quality.
Quality is at a low.
Yeah.
No, this is a great podcast.
I think for how much time we spend thinking about it, we do maximize our efforts here. Like, we always think of something to talk... Well, no, that's not true. We didn't think of something to talk about today. Yeah. But for the most part, we have an idea of what we're going to talk about. We try to make the lighting look good. We try to make the editing not horrible. It sounds okay. There's video along with it. It's everything that a standard podcast would have. There's clips. It's clippable. There is, like I've said already a couple times, a small base of recurring listeners, people that come back. So we're doing something right. I don't need it to be a huge base. I just need it to be a few people that, think that what we're doing is somewhat entertaining.
We should start every podcadzo episode with this sort of disclaimer
like a justification.
Justification of doing
why we're doing it.
Back for another week. Listen, we don't care that you guys didn't listen to last week's
It'll
episode.
change every week. Like this week, I don't care, but next week I'll probably be like, come on, guys. This was solid. Last week's episode was solid. You missed it. Fuck you.
So know that if we miss a week of podcadzo, it's either because we're working on music very hard, or because one of us has a debilitating addiction to muscle relaxers and cannot return a text message or get out of bed. So, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's not really much of a story, unfortunately. It's just a classic case of your boy over here getting older, being stupider. My other band had agreed to a band practice. I think it was like 2 Saturdays ago. Was that 2 weeks ago or last week? I don't even remember at this point. But we agreed to a practice. We got together to practice. We ran like half of our set. Felt great. Was just normal. Nothing wrong. We took a break. We come back downstairs to play like a second set. And then I guess pretty much like less than halfway into the first song, I started to feel like some pressure in my lower back. But it wasn't anything like out of the ordinary. Like generally I'll get a little bit of lower back pain if I'm sitting for way too long on the drum throne or just like, generally just oversending it. So I didn't think anything of it. I just kind of sat up a little bit straighter, like readjusted my weight. We finished practice. It didn't really get worse during practice, but then as soon as I went upstairs and laid down in bed, I had like a shooting pain that went from like the bottom of my spine or like lower middle of my spine all the way down to my feet. My feet were like tingling. I felt like my legs were numb and shit. And I was like, this is not normal. I couldn't really like get out of bed after that. I had to have my girlfriend like pull me up and help me around and stuff. And then the next morning when I got up to go to work, I kid you not, this is how I knew it was bad. I couldn't sit down on the toilet to go to the bathroom. I was like, I walked into the bathroom and I realized immediately, I was like, if I sit down, I'm not going to be able to get back up. And even if I do go to the bathroom, maybe TMI, like I'm not going to be able to like wipe my booty. I'm not going to be able to like turn around to do the wiping motion. So at that point, I was like, I need to go to the doctor. So I hit up like my boss at work and I was like, I threw out my back. And I was able to like get a little half day at work that day. But that day at work, I'm convinced I made it a lot worse. Yeah.
When you texted, I assumed it was work because your job involves, moving stuff around. I'm sure, bending over. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. And work probably could have been part of it. Mm-hmm. I think it was a combination of things. Like I worked 10 and a half hours and then came home and immediately sat down behind the drums, didn't stretch. Didn't even warm up, didn't do anything, revolving around self-preservation. I just immediately started playing as hard as I could.
And if you don't know, Julian's other band, Foreign Words, he goes very hard. If you thought he went hard in cadzo, which he does, he goes much harder in Foreign Words.
Yeah, just like a lot of like louder playing at the end of the day, like harder hits, more sustained like sections of just like full volume, full noise, which it wasn't really that bad at band practice because we're actually using in-ear monitors now, so we're playing a lot quieter in the room, which is cool. I think that's really good for all of us. But still, yeah, generally speaking, a lot harder than the cadzo stuff because in cadzo it's like we want to maintain a balance between everyone, like make sure that we can hear guitar and keys. But in Foreign Words, like the mission statement is like snare is the loudest thing in the room, and cymbals are like the second loudest thing in the room. So basically went to the doctor after getting off work. She was like, yeah, you have a hardcore strain in your back and a muscle tear, like right on the left side, and the muscle group that is strained is directly connected to like the arm motion of like reaching in and out and stuff like that. So doing this exacerbates that. So she was like, yeah, you shouldn't go to work. She told me to take 2 days off of work. I took 1 day off. And then we were supposed to, we had tentatively decided on a podcast, I think a practice too.
Yeah.
I texted you guys on, I believe, Sunday night.
Yeah, like Sunday. I was just double checking.
Right as soon as it had happened, I texted you guys. It's like, I'm not going to be able to play drums for at least a couple days. Because at that point, I couldn't even stand for... Well, it was like I couldn't do anything. Couldn't lay down. Couldn't sit. If I was standing still for more than like 30 seconds, I would just have like trembling pain and like my back all the way down. And if I twisted slightly to the left or slightly to the right, or if I bent down even remotely, it was just like shooting pain instantly. It was the worst pain I've ever felt in my life by far, as far as back pain is concerned. So yeah, she gave me some Flexeril, only 10 milligram Flexeril. So I was like, this will be chill. I started taking them on Monday. I took one Monday morning, and I shit you not, I slept for like the entire day. I couldn't not sleep. Yeah. And it's my first time ever taking muscle relaxers. So I didn't know what to expect really. And as far as the whole thing goes, I was not very satisfied. Like I was really sleepy. All I could do was lay in bed. My vision was like blurry and stuff. It felt like I was kind of high or like tripping on something for a little while, and I was just like trying to fight it, but then I wound up just sleeping for the entire day.
Yeah.
And when I woke up, my back didn't even feel that much better. It felt like slightly looser, but there was still a lot of pain. And I took another Flexeril Monday night, slept through the night, and then got up and went to work on Tuesday, which I think was also a mistake.
Yeah.
It didn't necessarily get worse on Tuesday, but it didn't get better either.
It was not a healing day.
And then Wednesday and Thursday of last week, I was off. So I was able to take a Flexeril on Wednesday morning. And that was the last one I took. And I started feeling a lot better like Wednesday afternoon. And then Thursday, I felt pretty much normal. And now it's like I can do pretty much everything. I can lift, I can bend, I can twist mostly. It's just if I, stand for too long, bend over for too long, or if I move my arms too far out in any one direction, and I feel like that little pinch.
Yeah.
But by next week, I think I'll be like fully normal again. So,
yeah. So we'll be back at it fully next week with rehearsals. We're doing the pod this week, but
and I'm
not rehearsing.
Gonna get into a stretching routine for before we practice, because I have a stretching routine for before shows, but I've never really stretched. I've always warmed up a little bit before practice, but never really stretched before practice, because practicing is the stretching in my opinion, but I can't really have that mentality anymore. I gotta make sure that everything's loose before I start, and if I feel any pain early on, I feel like I shouldn't necessarily push through it. I should take a minute and see what happens before continuing.
Got to take care of the vessel, brother.
I think 99% of it is posture related.
Yeah.
And the lady at the urgent care was basically just like, you probably just have bad posture, because the area where the tear happened is a chronic area. I was kind of telling you earlier. It's an area of my back that I've had issues with for years. And the reason why I've had issues with it probably all boils down to posture, sitting and standing posture. So
Yeah, back stuff is the worst. I was mentioning to you before we started that I used to like throw out, or I'm not sure if it was throwing out, but I would injure my upper back a lot. And I suspected it was from wearing a backpack, because this was when I was in college and wearing a heavy backpack a lot and biking with the backpack on. So I think that was the culprit. But then I know someone who's a physical therapist, and they said I probably was just like working out other muscle groups too much and not that particular muscle in my back. And actually, I think running more, which I've talked about on the podcast, since I've been running more, that's really helped with it, because this motion strengthens the shoulder blades and works them out regularly.
yeah, you get both sides.
Yeah, but I'm bringing that up because the only time I've taken muscle relaxers was a particularly bad injury with that. And my dad had a bunch of muscle relaxers. And I was over there visiting, and he was like, "Oh, you should take some of these. It will help." And same thing, knocked me out. And anytime I take painkillers or muscle relaxers, I'm like, I don't have an addictive personality when it comes to drugs, but the pill side of that
You liked
could be.
it?
I loved muscle relaxers.
Oh, see, I hated it.
Yeah.
I felt like, and the thing is, for me, like, I like smoking weed because I still have, generally speaking, unless I'm like really, really stoned, I have control of my faculties. I can still like do everything I want to do totally normally. Things that take that away from me, I don't like. That's why I don't really like drinking. And the muscle relaxer was the same. It was like, man, I really want to get up and walk around, but I literally feel like I can't.
Yeah.
Like I want to watch some YouTube, but then when I try to like work the remote, all the buttons are blurry. Like
That's what I'm looking for in a drug. Dude. I love it. Because I'm generally
that's the definition of an addictive personality.
I'm high strung and anxious, and I enjoy
I'm not
partaking
that
in
way.
Yeah, but I enjoy partaking in cannabis every once in a while, but a lot of the times it exasperates my busy mind and my anxiety and paranoia. So when I can just get knocked out, sleep really well, because sleep is also a problem, that's a good drug.
Yeah. I guess for me, it might just boil down to sleep's not a problem. Like,
Yeah.
if I want to go to sleep, I can go to sleep pretty much any
I
time.
have so much trouble sleeping. So yeah, I slept like 12 hours when I took a muscle relaxer. I was like, it's the best thing ever. It felt great. But yeah, so I only take painkillers or drugs like that when it's an absolute necessity.
Yeah. I don't think I ever want to again until the next... Because the thing is, I was expecting... I take a pill, I sleep for a few hours, I wake up and I feel loosey-goosey and amazing. But I slept for a few hours and I woke up and I felt just as stiff, just as unable to move around.
Yeah.
Like, it was basically just like a slightly muted version of the pain that I was going through already. And what helped me even more, I feel like, than the muscle relaxers was lidocaine patches. I just was
nice.
rocking lidocaine patches for like 12 hours a day, basically. 12 hours on, 12 hours off. And
Yeah.
that helped a lot, especially at work. I felt like I could do a lot of stuff at work that I wouldn't have been able to do otherwise. So,
Well, I'm glad you're feeling better.
Thank you.
Glad we'll be at it next week.
yeah, I'm glad that it wasn't anything more serious, because for a second there, I thought it was going to be like weeks and weeks of me being barely able to move.
Mm-hmm.
And the human body is truly a wonderful thing. Like, from Sunday not being able to really move, and then by Wednesday I can pretty much do everything again. Like, that's pretty amazing. And you just can't take that shit for granted. Like, I've always known this. I like to think I take pretty good care of myself. Like, I'm definitely not in shape, but I don't eat the worst. I don't do anything illicit besides smoking weed, if you can even consider that illicit. And I maintain a pretty active lifestyle. I'm on my feet like all the fucking time. So, it's just a matter of, I think, age. Like, the older you get, the more you have to preserve. Like,
Certainly.
yeah.
Take care of the vessel.
Mm-hmm.
So before we talk about anything further, I did just want to mention that we have put out a new release, Cadzo.
Yes.
We have dropped a sort of compilation album.
The same songs again.
The same songs again. Really milking these for everything we can. No, we don't mean to do it that way.
No, people were asking.
People
People were
asking.
genuinely asking for this.
So the release is called Combo: Early Recordings by Cadzo. And it's just a compilation album of every release we put out before our debut LP, Mile a Minute Man. Okay? We took off the releases mostly from streaming services before we dropped Mile a Minute Man because one was to just have like a clean release.
Yeah, you don't want to put a record out. At least how I feel is you don't want to put your debut record out and have it clouded by a bunch of singles that are already
and
on the
songs
record.
with the same title and stuff. Yeah, so it's just to have a clean release and and then also like take some of those songs away from people.
Those songs didn't represent us anymore.
Yeah.
They weren't us,
They
man.
weren't us, man. But yeah, at some point after taking those songs off of streaming services, people were reaching out saying, "Hey, where's the EP?" I remember someone came up to me at a show and said, "Why can't I stream Strange at First right now?" This was the night we were dropping the album. I said, "You got to wait till we drop the album. You can listen to the album version here in just a second."
I had people specifically asking about the single version of Larimer Street, which
that one stayed up the whole time.
It did disappear for like a day or two, remember? At least off Spotify. Everything was gone.
That was that drama we had. Which let's not even get into that.
But people were asking about the single version. And I just thought, personally, I think that the single version of Larimer Street is way worse than the one on the record. But I mean, hey, you have your single version.
Yeah.
You fucking weirdos.
Yeah. I felt a little torn about putting out all of the songs again, but I'm ultimately very glad we did it, and it's cool to have it all in one place now. Mm-hmm. It's sort of, you can kind of think of it as like if we just released Mile a Minute Man extended version.
Yeah.
Like some bands doing all the demo versions and stuff.
But it's also a lot different than Mile a Minute Man because, in my opinion, a lot of the more mature songs that we kind of developed later on are not on that combo.
Yeah, they're not.
Because they weren't around at the time, obviously, that we recorded all those other tracks. So
exactly.
It's a totally different listening experience, I feel like.
Yeah.
And if you go, anyone who's like super into cadzo, I did this the other day just for funsies because I hadn't listened to the EP and the single tracks. It was so fucking long. I went and I listened to the combo and then I listened to Mile a Minute Man afterwards, and there's just so many subtle differences. And at first, when we had talked about re-recording songs for the record, I was kind of opposed to it initially. I was like, it's kind of a weak thing to do, like just re-release the same songs again, but like they're not really the same songs.
They're really different songs.
So different. And a lot of the shit that we released initially was, and you can tell by listening, we just were putting shit out as quickly as possible. Like we just needed to have some proof on the internet that Cadzo was a functioning band that released stuff, and a lot of it was just as soon as the shit was done, we were releasing it. And Benson was writing a lot of his parts like last minute, and they were just getting like tacked on to shit that was already finished. Like, I think you can really tell all of that from the EP, and it's really charming in a way, but it's also like the record just has so much more maturity, and like we really found ourselves a lot, I feel like, on the record. So
I had not listened to the EP either until I kind of started putting together the compilation, just collecting all the songs again to release. And there's a charm to the EP, like you said, that I never really appreciated. And I really enjoyed listening to it. It like really sounds different, and like at the time, I'd say we were really like on our own thing. It was unique from how a lot of other music sounded. And it's fun comparing it to the album because I hadn't done that in a while. I'm glad both versions of a lot of these songs are out there.
And to take
it's cool to have it in one place.
Yeah. To take it even more metaphorical for a second, like, or not metaphorical, abstract, just to get abstract for a second, if you will. The last group we were in together focused a lot on, like, I think being really structured and really clean and just like not no frills, but just not necessarily any extra stuff. No, like, no stepping out a lot. A lot of it was supposed to be very linear, very clean, very just like refined, I guess is the ultimate word. And I think in Cadzo, we ultimately found, after a few months of jamming, especially with Will Benson, that we should be a little bit more unhinged, that we should like lay loose a little bit more and just like get a little bit more crazy with the songs. But the EP release is still like super linear, super clean, like not a whole lot of added stuff. And I think that you can really hear the transition, like us, especially in our performances, from the group we were in to what Cadzo was eventually become. Because I think at first we were just like trying to figure out, should we do more of like the same stuff that we were doing? Should it be more of like an alt thing? Should it be more of an indie thing? And ultimately the record is like super expressive, whereas the EP is a lot more, just like in line and organized, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
So that was an interesting thing that I kind of thought of too, is like, wow, the EP reminds me a lot more of our last band than the record does in a lot of ways.
Yes.
As far as our performances, not the songs themselves, but just the way that we were approaching the performance.
Yeah, I know what you mean. True. So there's one previously unreleased song on the compilation, tacked on right at the very end, track 9, that the working title was Juju. It was a demo. So if you haven't listened to Juju yet, check that out. It was something I just recorded on the piano and put a little beat behind it, sent it to Julian to see what he thought of it. It was something we didn't really know what to do at the time, but as I was digging through all these old recordings, I found that on my computer, listened to it. I was like, oh, this is pretty cool for like a demo. Be kind of fun to put something new out that people haven't heard on this compilation album. So we tagged Juju at the end of it, and I've gotten some nice compliments about that track since we've put it out.
It's definitely, I think, kind of like what I was just talking about. It's a good track that is like, it's a good indicator of that transitional between bands. Like it has a lot of elements about it that remind me of the last group, but it also has like that, I guess, just like more emotional like playthrough that like Cadzo has, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Like it has feel to it.
So that's Combo. Check it out anywhere where you can stream music. Okay.
And I don't want to spoil it, but if you notice any, let's just call them Easter eggs anywhere on the cover, let me know.
Spend some time with the cover art.
We can, I don't know. Anyone who can notice anything, maybe we could like send them a sticker or something.
Yeah.
You want a Cadzo sticker?
If you comment or reach out to us somehow with an Easter egg on the Combo cover art, we will send you a sticker.
There we go.
Maybe a t-shirt.
Oh.
Sticker. Sticker.
T-shirt if you get them all.
True.
There's a few that are really hidden, and there's hidden stuff. I guess that's saying too much already.
But yeah, I'm really happy with how the cover art for the release turned out.
I think it's cool.
You killed
it. One thing that we discuss a lot as a band that I think a lot of other bands probably discuss too is just like our online kind of presence, making sure that things are more or less kind of uniform across like especially the Spotify page. Aesthetically uniform. We don't want to have anything that like sticks out too much. So I think that in a lot of ways it just satisfies me opening like the Cadzo Spotify and seeing that the two covers are from the same universe.
Yeah.
It's not like two completely different conceptual ideas. And I do want to shout out my girlfriend, because she is the one who came up with the first ever cover for the EP, the original Cadzo EP.
Yeah, she did the artwork for
it. She
it.
painted it, and in a lot of ways, I feel like that painting that she did for us kind of like encapsulated the mindset that we were in at the time, like the feeling that we wanted to go for on the EP.
It fit the EP incredibly well.
Yeah. And I think that now trying to do the same thing with the two covers, the Mile a Minute Man cover and then the combo cover, like trying to have those reset, or not even reset, but just like re-encapsulate where we're at now. Like that original art that she made us really like pushed me a lot to like try and come up with some art that would like really, I think, fit the songs and the vibe of like the group in general. So that original cover, there wasn't anything about us like not liking it or like wanting to replace it. It was just like wanting to have a more uniform approach to the Cadzo Spotify page and all that stuff. And that original art, I think, inspired a lot of the early Cadzo stuff. So
Indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Hard to replace, but I think very important that we like spent time thinking about it and trying a lot of different things and like ultimately landing on what everybody thought fit the best. Or
we should
whatever.
reuse that art for podcadzo cover.
That'd be cool.
I'm going to do that. I'm going to change the podcadzo cover.
There we go.
Hell yeah. All right. So moving on from combo. Let's see. What's our next segment? You had some videos you wanted to show me. There's a couple new musical releases I wanted to or really just one I wanted to talk about.
I wanted to mention one thing. You can
it.
cut it out if you don't want it to actually be in the podcast. But I did just want to mention really quick, because I have genuinely had a lot of people asking me this ever since the focomx lineup dropped. Just people messaging me, asking like... Mostly people messaging, asking why we didn't apply, or like...
Who?
So many people.
Really?
Well, I don't... Bleep their names, because I don't want to call anybody out, but... Basically, I just wanted to say really quickly, we did apply,
Yeah.
and we thought that this would be like the year of the Cadzo,
Not to
right?
be arrogant, I thought
we were like a shoo-in.
for
Yeah. Like, if anyone is going to get in, it's going to be us. Like,
well, not if anyone, but
well, but if everyone else that got in,
if
got
there's
in,
over 400 bands,
yeah, why not us?
Why not the guys like taking it pretty seriously, putting out an album, headlining shows in Denver?
Yeah. That's the only reason why I thought this year would be the year for us, was because we put out a record that got good traction. We got covered by like media outlets online. We've headlined shows in Fort Collins and Denver. Basically, we did all the things that we were told you need to do to be considered seriously. And I don't want to throw any other bands under the bus, but like a lot of bands that got in my opinion, didn't do a lot of the things that we did, and yet they got in and we didn't. It just seems really random and arbitrary. And this isn't... I'm not trying to talk shit on focomx or focomA. I hope that it doesn't come off like that, because that's genuinely not what this is about. There's a lot of bands, I understand, and there's a lot of people that have to make tough decisions at the end of the day. There's only so many venues, there's only so many spots, and
there's a lot of indie bands in our vein that are applying,
and there's a lot of bands that are genuinely a lot more popular than us.
They want to keep it diversified. It can't just be a bunch of indie rock bands.
Totally,
it's fair.
So that's all relevant and fair. I just wanted to more or less say to the people that were asking, we did apply. We thought that this would be the year that we would make it into focomx, and we're, I would say, equally as baffled as people who seem to be surprised that we didn't get in, because and I don't want to seem like fucking whiner babies either, like, oh, we didn't get in, wah wah. I don't really give a shit. Like, we're gonna play other shows that are gonna be way better for us than a focomx set, but it's just like kind of baffling. Like, we it's hard to take it not personally at this point. Like, we stay outside of the vein a little bit. We don't necessarily acclimate ourselves with the musical culture that is Fort Collins. We're slightly outsiders, I would say.
Yes.
We don't necessarily have all the friends
We
in the
don't
world
play
in the
ball
music
as much
scene.
as a lot of the other bands who are on the lineup.
Yeah. So I want to say that it's just mostly about that. We just don't know the right people, and we're not personally as attached to the people that run the scene as some of the other bands. But then there's also a lot of bands that just know other bands, or they just know other people in the scene or whatever that make it in as well. So it is hard to not take it a little bit personally, for me at least. But again, I don't want to seem like whiner babies. I'm ultimately grateful that we didn't get in, because now we can book a show in April anywhere we want and play for more than 45 minutes. And, you don't have to spend $85 to see a 35-minute cadzo set at the end of the day, which is a good thing. But I just wanted to address it because I have had a fair bit of people ask, and it is really interesting to me. And I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. Right on, man. I was hesitant to talk about this on the pod. Glad you brought it up. I let it get to me the day the lineup was announced and we weren't on it. It felt like a big feeling of rejection. Feels like being in a band is really mostly rejection until you reach a point where you get accepted by a lot of people. So that night I was bumming out and just felt dejected and was like, what are we doing wrong? How are we not on this lineup? Not that, congratulations to all the bands that are on the lineup, and you all deserve it. And,
we both have, I would say, a lot of friends who are in bands that are playing this year.
Yeah.
And like none of the shade goes towards the bands
we're not
or
saying
any of those
any
people.
particular band doesn't deserve to be on the lineup.
Yeah.
But it was just one of those things like, what more do we need to do just to get like recognized by the local scene in our hometown that we, after over a year doing it, have seemed to not open their arms to us at all.
We run a podcast where we have people within the local music scene who ask us to come on our podcast.
Yeah.
The podcast, whether or not it has high viewership, it is slightly influential within the Fort Collins music scene. People know about it. They want to be a part of it on some level. More than that, we've been playing so many shows. It's not a matter of can we fill up a room, because we both know we can fill up a room at this point. Mm-hmm. That's not a problem for us. Not because we're a great band, but because we have friends that are supportive. And yeah, furthermore than that, I feel like we give back to the music scene in a lot of ways. We bring a lot of bands with us. We play with different bands each time. We try to make sure that we play, both Fort Collins and Denver equally, so that we can diversify and do all the things that we've been told, like I said before, that we need to do to be considered. And at the end of the day, it doesn't seem like it's really about that as much as it is just about the politics, the social aspect of it. And we're not antisocial. I think we have a lot of friends in the scene. We have a lot of people that we know. But at the end of the day, that's different than being able to play with those bands and soak up that side of it. So yeah.
So I let it get to me that one night, and then I woke up the next day surprised how little I cared about it anymore. And something serendipitous happened where that morning, or that day, a couple people just randomly reached out over, like a couple true randoms over Instagram, and then people over text, saying they listened to the album or some music or something and liked it. And that meant a lot to me. Like the first thing I saw that morning was a random person hit us up on Instagram and was like, yo, just listen to my album, man. It's a great album. I was like, wow, thank you so much. And I was like, yeah, I love making music.
Yeah.
I love doing this.
At the end of the day,
At the end of the day, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, that is what I take the most pride in, is the fact that we put out a record, in November of last year, and it has been by far the most successful record of anything I've ever done as a musician. Like, I've been in so many bands and put out so many records and done so many things over the last, decade plus in Fort Collins, and this record has taken off the most. It's had the most positive feedback. It's gotten the most attention, and people, I think, have connected with it by far more than anything else that I've ever done with any other group. So I think that speaks volumes as to like what we set out to do ultimately. At the beginning of 2024, our goal was put out a record that people like, and we did that. The goal wasn't by 2025 we're playing focomx. Yeah. That wasn't our end goal. And I think what hurts for me so much, and I'm sorry to ramble about it so much, but we both were in bands 10 years ago that were playing focomx, playing good focomx spots.
Yeah.
I like to think in a lot of ways we were helping an organization that was still finding its footing back then. Like, focomx was pretty big, but it wasn't the huge fucking behemoth that it is now. And we were both in bands that were getting attention, and we played focomx multiple years in a row at good spots. Like,
yeah.
We were getting the hookup, and that was a decade ago. And now that we're in this band as adults, trying to get some of that love thrown back to us, it's kind of like a go fuck yourself situation where nobody gives a shit.
Yeah,
so
no,
that's what feels weird about it to me.
When I think about it that way, yeah, it definitely stings. And I to Julia, I was like, we can get in focomx. And she's like, without naming it, she was like, your old band's got into focomx,
exactly.
And cadzo isn't. Like, you get, and that made me, she's like, you're making better music than you ever have. Like, it's okay.
Yeah. It's not
it's outside of control.
Point. Yeah. It's mostly a reflection, I think, of just how huge and saturated the music scene is. And also, I do want to call out focomx in one regard. I do feel like a decade ago, when we were playing focomx, it was still mostly Fort Collins bands and some Greeley bands, no true no-co bands. Now it's like half of them are Denver bands, and I don't really know why we need to be doing that. Like, the Denver bands,
yeah,
they don't need focomx other than maybe to build out their Fort Collins audience a bit more. Like, maybe favor some more Fort Collins and true no-co acts rather than going for the Denver bands that are going to just move tickets. Like, Flowbots are playing focomx.
Yeah, I saw that.
How the fuck do they need to be playing focomx? That people know who the Flowbots are. Like,
yeah,
they had their moment already a long time ago. They don't need to be, taking up that stage space. But I did want to say, like, in regards to the amount of really good bands that did get into focomx, I just wanted to rattle off a few. Frail Talk, Knuckleball, All My Senses, Major Flavor, Swashdocs, Hotel Wi-Fi, Costanza, Cactus Cat, Foreign Sons. Like, that barely even scratches the surface of the amount of bands that I'm truly stoked to see at focomx this year. And there's a lot of really, really high caliber talent that did make it in. There's also a lot of bands where I was expecting to see them and I didn't. And kind of like people are hitting me up. I don't know if they applied. I don't know if they didn't get in. I don't know what the deal is, but there's a shitload of bands that I feel like over the last year have really represented Fort Collins and shown up in a big way for the music scene here, and they're not included. So
yeah,
it's just, and to the flip side of that, there's a bunch of veteran bands who I feel like literally only come out once a year to play focomx. Like, some bands that I haven't thought about for years that are literally coming out to play a set at focomx. It's like, well, what good does that do you also? Like,
yeah,
you're just a veteran act that, again, people will come because they know the name, but what are you doing for the scene at large? Are you representing year round, or are you just pulling up for this one thing?
Yeah, no, that's their weekend.
Yep.
Well, anyways.
Anywho.
Glad you brought it up.
Thanks.
No hard feelings.
No hard feelings. No shit talking. I know I said I didn't want to seem like a whiner baby, but it's probably going to seem somewhat whiner baby-ish no matter what, just because we're complaining about not getting into a thing, but it hurts.
It does. Like I said, music is mostly rejection.
Yeah.
And, it's just, one more thing on the pile, but that's okay. We convert that into fuel that we operate off of, and we're working on some new tunes, some new stuff, and I'm excited about
the output
future.
For this group will not slow down.
No.
I don't think we're going to be going away anytime soon.
Okay. So that's our focomx segment. Well done on that, Julian. Thanks for bringing it up. What you got for me next?
Okay, well, do you want to talk new releases?
Yeah.
You want to talk some new
Let's
releases?
talk. I only had one to bring up. You want me to start?
Yeah, go for it.
It is the new, I had it up here, the new Panda Bear record,
Okay,
Sinister Grift.
nice.
Have you listened?
I listened to the first couple tracks.
Those are the best in my opinion. The first track, Praise,
Yeah,
amazing song.
that song is really cool. I honestly started to check out by like track 4.
Yeah. Yeah, that can have nothing against Panda Bear. It's just that type of music that he makes.
Yeah.
It can kind of blend together. You can kind of check out easily. But I've made it very clear on this podcast how much I love Animal Collective, how much I love Panda Bear. I had no idea a new Panda Bear release was coming out. I just opened up Apple Music one day and saw it there and was stoked. And it's been on pretty constant rotation for me since it came out.
I have to finish it.
Yeah, it always, I think of Panda Bear primarily as a producer, and I think of Animal Collective in terms of like production and that way too, but always amazes me what a gifted vocalist Panda Bear is. Like, and his Beach Boys aspirations and inspirations are really reached a new pinnacle on this record.
Yeah, I definitely felt some of that for sure. Mm-hmm. Oh, Maze.
Oh, hi, Maze. Everybody welcome Maisie the dog.
Can't even
to the
see
party.
her.
Can't see her. Here, Maisie, hop up here. Oh, that's okay.
Go away.
The one time I want you to jump on my lap.
She's
You
like,
won't do it.
no.
Oh, here she is.
There we go.
Here she is. But yeah, Panda Bear. That's sick. Do you ever listen to any Panda Bear?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I listened to Panda Bear mostly, honestly, because Tom York was a big Panda Bear fan during the King of Limbs days, and that's what initially got me into Panda Bear. And same with who's the other one? Fuck, I can't remember. I'm not gonna.
From Animal Collective?
No, just as another group that was kind of like around, like kind of the same vibes around the same time. But
I didn't know Tom York was into Panda Bear, but that makes a lot of sense for like Eraser, like that era. Is that what you're talking about?
It was like King of Limbs when he was talking about
King
them.
of Limbs era. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, for Radiohead stuff. That makes sense.
I don't know if he was necessarily saying that it influenced Radiohead, but it was like, I just remember they were on like a press tour for King of Limbs, and someone asked Tom York, like, what have you been listening to lately? And he was like, oh, Panda Bear is fucking great. And fucking who else? I don't care. I don't care. It doesn't matter.
If for any of our listeners you're not familiar with Panda Bear, go check out his 2007. Well, check out the new album for sure. Check out the 2007 album, Person Pitch. The first song on Person Pitch, Comfy Nautica, is on vibes alone, top 10 song for me. Makes me feel a way no other song does. I love that song so much.
That's good. Have we done an episode since the Knuckleball show? Have we mentioned anything about
I did.
that?
That was something I wanted to talk about, was the Knuckleball show.
I did want to mention the Knuckleball release opening day.
Yeah.
I have been spinning that record a lot. I don't normally consider myself a jam band fan, but the Knuckleball record wears so many different coats. Like, it's so impressive the amount of different musical influence that's on that record. And even from song to song, like, some songs start out as like New Orleans jazz almost, and they wind up turning into like full blown like rock songs.
Yeah.
And some are like really halftimey, some are swingy, and yeah, the energy of that record is overwhelmingly, I would say, just like super uplifting and positive. Like, it's just a super fun.
It's a great
record.
I bought a CD at the show.
Oh,
and,
nice.
Listened to the CD when I was driving up to the mountains this weekend.
That's awesome.
And it was the perfect soundtrack for driving up the mountains for a fun weekend getaway.
Yeah, it's definitely that type of music. Like, listen to it when you're driving around and the sun's out, or just like, while you're, I hate to sound cliche, but while you're like in the yard fucking grilling up some burgies on a nice sunny day.
That's
like,
what Knuckleball makes. They make greasy music,
it's
greasy
that grease
jam
face
music for when you're grilling some hot dogs.
Yeah. I really, really love that record. I think they absolutely knocked it out of the park. And that show was also, I think I would have to say, probably my favorite Cadzo show we've played so far.
That's why I wanted to bring up the show. That's what I was going to bring up after we talked about that album, but I forgot. Or the new compilation album is, that show at Collective Vintage with Knuckleball and Velvet Daydream was my favorite show I think we've done too. For some reason, I could hear myself the best in that show in the venue that's not a music venue. Really? I mean, they put shows on there, but not designed to be a music venue.
It's not designed, yeah.
We had a fantastic turnout, really great vibes the whole night. We played well as a band. Probably one of the better sets we've turned in, and I enjoyed the whole thing. And it was, I guess we've been playing a lot of longer, hour-long sets lately, but not as like an opener where there's pressure to like fill the whole hour.
It's the first time I think that the headliner has told us, hey, we want you to play for an hour.
Which is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, huge shout out to the Knuckleball homies, because in a lot of ways, a lot of bands would make an album release show pretty much purely a night about them.
Yeah.
But I really felt like that night was for all of us. Like, it really felt like as much as we were there for Knuckleball, Knuckleball was also like there for us, and they wanted us to be there. Like, it felt like, it didn't just feel like a random bill was put together. It felt like very hand-selected, and it felt like I was truly honored to be there for such a special night, because the Knuckleball homies have been working on the record for a while, and even before they were working on the record, they were just grinding for years and thinking about a record and wanting to get there eventually. And the fact that they thought of us to be there, we haven't played with them in over a year. It's probably been like 2 years at this point.
Yeah. We haven't played with them as
Cadzo. Yeah.
I'll say the Knuckleball dudes, the hardest working band in Fort Collins, and also the biggest homies.
Best sounding live band, I think, in Fort Collins.
Yeah.
By far. The fact that we were in Collective Vintage, again, a place that's not necessarily designed to have the best acoustics, and I could hear everything.
Place.
A great place. The atmosphere, a huge part of the reason why that night was so great was just because the atmosphere at Collective was so good.
When we walked in for sound check, I was like, I wish I lived near here. I would hang out here all the time. It was just like people chilling, playing pool, playing Super Smash Bros.
The staff was amazing.
Yeah.
We didn't even technically have a sound guy, but the guy that was working door and sound was super cool. Everyone that showed up to the show was just like respectful and polite. Everyone was there for the music. Like, there wasn't any of that, I guess, just like extracurricular bullshit going on that's normally going on at venues where like there's that group that's at the bar that just like doesn't give a shit about what's happening at the show. Everyone was there, it seemed like, for the music. Even the people that didn't know there was a show, like, they were pulled into the show, and like everyone was having a good time. But yeah, the Knuckleball dudes, it's just insane how fucking good they sound and how far they've come. Like, the amount of musical like professionalism on the stage just blows me away, and each time it feels like it gets exponentially better. So I really do think that truly they are like the best sounding band in Fort Collins. Like, I could listen to their whole set and hear every single instrument, and like I could take my earplugs out and my ears didn't even hurt. Like, they weren't loud. They weren't like abrasive, but yet when they needed to rock out, they like rocked the fuck out. And yeah, it was just like a mind blowing show. I was mind blown by the performance that Knuckleball put on. So huge shout out to those boys.
Shout out Knuckleball. Glad we talked about that show because that was cool. Oh, the other show we had that weekend was High Dive, which was also fun.
I still need to send you some photos.
Yeah, I'd like to see those.
I'll get those over to you.
Shout out High Dive too for having us.
Yeah, that High Dive show is really fun too. The High Dive is a crazy venue.
Yeah.
I did not realize all of the different parts of that space. Like I've only ever been there once as a show goer, so like the green room experience was pretty crazy.
Yeah.
The stage itself there is pretty crazy too. Like you could put on a pretty serious production there. So
Indeed.
yeah.
Hope to go back there soon. All right, so my new release was Panda Bear. What do you got on the radar for new releases? And then, brother, I'm probably gonna have to wrap it up after that.
Yeah, that's chill.
Cool.
That opening day from Knuckleball, I wanted to mention, and then I also wanted to mention the No Fauna release that just came out, Winter.
Just dropped today.
Yeah,
I wanted to shout them out too because that's a really good EP.
It's super super solid. The guitar playing on it is insane.
Yeah, I know. They're like it's causing Chon to me a little bit.
Yeah, there's
that
Chon
sort of
vibes.
super clean, sweepy.
I got a lot of like American football vibes.
American
from
football,
it.
definitely some Midwest emo stuff. Yeah,
But yeah, no, super super good release there. We should have No Fauna on the pod, guys. Come on, get on the podcast sometime. Let's talk about.
We should reach out to them.
Talk about your new shit. Let's talk about all your shit. And then I did also, it's not necessarily a new release, but I did just want to mention, have you seen any of the Radiohead speculation that's been going on?
I was tipped off to that by the Needle Drop just the other day.
Okay.
Yes.
So they formed a new LLP, which they historically do before new releases. And the last LLP was when they did the Kid Amnesia release. And so, yeah, they formed a new LLP, so everyone thinks that they're going to release a new record, but I'm pretty sure that it's just going to be another compilation record.
Yeah.
They've started like teasing a bunch of like the Benz preview stuff, like not before seen footage from the Benz recordings and unheard audio and stuff like that from the Benz. And also apparently the like label that they're on has pledged a pair of like Radiohead tickets to any show of your choosing as like a prize for some raffle or something I don't even know. Someone's doing a raffle and they've already locked in on some Radiohead tickets as one of the prizes, which would imply that Radiohead's going on tour.
Wow.
So we could finally have our chance to see Radiohead after all this time again, I guess, for some of us, but for the first time for the rest of us.
It'd be my first time.
Yeah, man.
That'd be pretty special.
That'd be pretty sick, right?
Yeah.
After what? It's been almost 10 years, right?
Which is crazy.
Yeah. That was the only other real piece of music news that was blowing my mind, was the prospect of maybe new Radiohead, but I would think probably more likely just a tour and maybe a compilation of some kind.
Yeah.
Some sort of Ben's anniversary shit. Yeah, that's pretty much it. There hasn't been too much new music that I've really cared about lately.
The Panda Bear was really the only thing on my radar. Well, right on.
Hell yeah.
That's what I call an episode
That's
of
what I call
podcadzo.
a full episode right there.
Yeah.
Didn't phone this one in at all.
No. We tried our absolute hardest. Yeah, this is as good as it will ever get.
This is probably the peak right here.
It's all
the pinnacle.
We can stop trying.
Call
It's all
it pinnacle,
downhill.
pinnacle cadzo.
This episode's called We've Climaxed. All right. We love you all.
Parenthetical, don't demonetize us.
Yeah. We'll just put asterisks in climax. You got to figure out. You got to get it up to this point in the episode.
If you guess, we'll send you a sticker.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for listening. We love you.
See you next time.